students. Now we are going to see the strategies, the methods to reduce air pollution. We saw many technical devices. Now we are going to see the methods. See, as you grow up into adults, you need to really gear up, you need to be responsible and also stand up and raise your voice. And how to do that? Unless we are aware of this, we cannot do that. So we move on to the strategies, and there are some economic policies that we need to know. Under these economic policies, we need also to know two things under two headings. One is the penalties that the government lays upon people who flout the rules, and also the subsidies and the incentives that they get when they support to reduce air pollution, the incentives and the subsidies that they get. So initially let us start with the penalties. Okay, so these are some of the penalties that we have. Sometimes what happens is, in the last video whatever we saw, those technical devices are supposed to be fit into these chimneys and other things which will emit a lot of air pollutants, but they are expelled without any mechanical device. So without any treatment, when they are just let out as such, sometimes some areas will have such high concentrations of sulfur dioxide, chlorine gas, all acidic gases that can cause a lot of breathing problems. It can affect their lungs, it can affect their eyes, redness of eyes and rashes, and so many things can happen. So they have a heavy penalty laid on them, and then if their emission levels, even after fitting all those things, if their emission levels exceed what is allowed, then also they get penalties. And if they don't treat the chemicals, see, many times especially all the waste are just washed into the water bodies, and the water bodies get contaminated, and sometimes such a large area of oceans and rivers, there is no marine organisms at all. They just die and they just float and stink, and all these things happen because the chemical treatment is not done. And then we have old inefficient vehicles. Okay, many things nowadays, whatever we get and buy, even if it is very costly, take even your mobile phones, after 2 years and 3 years, however costly it could be, you have to give it away and take a new one. Now here we are still using those old vehicles and giving in a lot of smoke, and this smoke can be very dangerous and hazardous. So for this also penalties are given by the government. Next we move on to the subsidies and incentives that they give. Now there is always two kinds of petrol, unleaded and leaded petrol. Okay, so earlier this lead is just a metal. Okay, this acts as an anti-knock. So what happens is, when lead is added to petrol, there is a free flow of the thing to the fuel to the engine, and because of that there is a smooth ride and drive. So everyone started adding this, but over a period of time this lead started just getting suspended in the atmosphere, and it would just go into the air that we inhale, and it will just settle inside the body system. So now we come across unleaded petrol. Okay, now if you go into the petrol bunks, you will see that it is always mentioned unleaded. So for that they give less tax. They need not pay the tax that other people will be paying, but it would be something less. Similarly, when you have reduced pollutants, the government is coming up with rewards. They are rewarding the people or the industries which give out lesser pollutants. Okay, then the third one is less tax for cleaner fuels. Now there are many other fuels which are going to see shortly, which are better and they give out lesser pollutants. So for that again it is less tax. So less tax for cleaner fuels, less tax for clean petrol. Then you have lower taxes for also fuel efficient vehicles. So you see here it is a hydrogen car. Okay, this one hasn't still come in full-fledged because hydrogen can be very dangerous. When it's exposed to air, it can explode. So it's still coming up, it's still catching up, but still they are having a lot of encouragement and giving lesser tax for these fuel efficient vehicles. Then you also have deductions for vehicles with emission control devices, okay, like you have this catalytic converters and other things which will have an emission control, and it will be able to monitor and will leave out only neutral gases and acidic gases will be gone. Okay, so these are the subsidies or incentives that we see in the economic policies. Now we move on to some of the technical devices like hybrid vehicles. This is the second one. After policies, we come across this. See, when the policies are given out, people, car manufacturers and vehicle manufacturers, they also come up with so many novel things, and one of the things that they have come up with is hybrid vehicles. You know, the word hybrid, you know that it is always a mixture of something. It's not the pure. For example, if you take a dog, it's a pure breed is there, hybrid is there, it's a mix of two breeds. Like that, you have these vehicles. Here we call this hybrid as a mixture of two sources of power or energy, okay, that gives the power. For example, now a simple thing, you take this cycle which will have the manual power, along with that it also has an electric battery, okay. Like that, you have this where you have solar powered electric motors that is ferrying this, okay. Now you have these, this is the main thing, this is called as a catalytic converter. Now this is a part and parcel of all the latest cars and vehicles. What happens is, this catalytic converter will convert all the oxides of nitrogen and sulfur into nitrogen. See, when oxides of nitrogen, for example, if you take nitrogen dioxide, this can react with the water vapor present in the atmosphere to give something called acid rain, that is nitric acid. This is just one example. Similarly, sulfur dioxide can do, sulfur trioxide can do, all these things can add up. Now what a catalytic converter does is, it breaks this down in the presence of, let us take platinum as a catalyst, it will break down these oxides into neutral gases. Now this nitrogen is part of our atmosphere, 78% of our atmosphere is made of nitrogen, so it is harmless. So this is let out as an exhaust in the place of oxides. Okay, so that's what a catalytic converter does. Then we have these cars like Toyota Prius. Now all these cars, actually Toyota Prius has an internal combustion engine, and along with that there is also an electrified motor. Now what happens is, when the car starts, sometimes if you have seen these latest cars, the moment it starts, it gets such good pickup. Earlier it was not like that, 15-20 years it wasn't like that, but now how does this pickup come? Because immediately the electric motor gives in the power, it starts off, so the power is supplied, and then the internal combustion engine, which uses petrol, takes over. Okay, so this is how all these hybrid vehicles will act. Okay, so this is one type. Now next we go on to the alternate fuels. So as our resources are also going away and the demand is too much and the resources are less, we need to find out alternate fuels, and also fuels which will not give in enough of air pollutants, but it will reduce this air pollution. So these are some of the alternate fuels, these vehicles which are running on alternate fuels. The first one is CNG, compressed natural gas. CNG stands for compressed natural gas. Actually, this compressed natural gas has about 80% methane. Compared to all other fuels, this contains very large amount of methane, and because of this will just, when it undergoes combustion, gives you carbon dioxide and water vapor. So it reduces a lot of pollution, so the CNGs are used. See, earlier there was when everything was run on petroleum and diesel and gasoline, it was giving a lot of pollution and the air was becoming highly polluted. Now this compressed natural gas is definitely a better means, and that's why nowadays we have these green autos which also run with CNGs. Okay, the next one is hydrogen fuel. Cars run on hydrogen. When this undergoes combustion, exhaust will give hydrogen will react with oxygen to give only water vapor. So this will be the exhaust. So water vapor is harmless. When it is let out in the atmosphere, absolutely there's nothing that can happen. The next one is biodiesel. This is a combination and mostly from the biological side. Okay, we have soya bean. Okay, then you have ethanol. Now this ethanol comes from sugar products like sugar cane, sugar beet. All these can produce ethanol, methanol, soya bean. All these together only form the biodiesel. Okay, only thing is with all these alternate fuels, the pickup and the mileage is sometimes a problem. But otherwise in the cities, inside the cities, these are definitely very good options. One more alternate fuel is liquid nitrogen. Now this is called as liquid nitrogen cars, LNCs. Okay, so these are the different fuels that we can think of, and as environmentalists we can plan and we can build up on this and maybe come up with many new alternate fuels.